Hello, welcome to Speech Talk Live. This is episode number 38. My name is Jay Oza. I'm the host of the show. And as usual, I have Julie Wu Finkelstein joining us today. And the purpose, I'm based out of Hazlet, New Jersey, which is about 50 miles from New York City. And I do three things actually. One is I have a consulting firm called Tool Group, which I help small businesses drive sales. But I'm actually kind of transitioning into doing something different now, which is I want to focus on helping businesses if they have a need with public speaking. That's what I want to focus on. And uh, one of the things I do with that is the show is one of the things. Also, I mentor this Coursera course called Introduction to Public Speaking, and I'm currently working on my second draft of the book that I'm likely to publish, hopefully real soon, called How to Become a Good to Great Speaker. That's my tentative title right now. Um, we do this show for a number of reasons. One is to produce a lot of content for the Coursera's discussion forum, since we do mentor that. And there are a lot of questions that come up, and I do get emails from people. If you're watching this, I know there are quite a few people who do watch this regularly, and they send me emails and they find these shows very helpful. So thank you for the feedback that you're giving us. I just got an email from a person from Nigeria, and he listens to this, watches these shows, and he gets a lot out of them. And I know there are people in Brazil who watch it, and they give me the feedback. So any kind of feedback you give us is really helpful. And if you have any questions or anything, that also will help us. So have that coming. It gives us an idea that we are making some kind of a difference to people out there. And that's what we try to do. We pick topics and a lot of them we use ourselves as an example. Like today, first segment, I have recorded a speech. It's both not only to practice speaking there, but also there is an interesting topic there. And then we have a discussion. So it's, even though you're not participating, but it's also an opportunity for you to get an idea, the kind of discussion we have. And this is something anybody can do. This is not, we don't have any kind of special skills that makes us do this. So the part of this purpose of the show is to learn, to teach, to coach, to practice, and it's a support group, right? We are part of the learning cohort, and we support each other so that we're continuing to improve on this. It's a difficult skill. Public speaking is hard, and it's like sales. They always say you're only as good as your last sale. So speaking is like that too. You're only as good as your last speech. So today we have three segments. The first segment, we're going to talk about the zone of success, which is like when you're speaking, what is the zone you want to be in? And we're going to have a discussion on that. Second one, Julie will facilitate that, and she will discuss her 12 exercises as part of her energy hack that she's been working on. And this is also part of the book that she's currently writing. So she will facilitate that session, and we'll have a discussion on, and it's her session, so we'll have a discussion on what she wants to discuss. And on the third segment, we are going to review a speech that was recently recorded at the TED event by Dalia Mogahed. And we will review her speech and have a discussion on it. Okay, so that's the show. And at this point, I'd like to have Julie give her intro, and then we'll get started with our 3-minute speech segment. Julie, take it over.
Thanks, Jay. So my interest in current projects is how to live and help others live a powerful, energetic life. And so I'm doing workshops, and I have online communities that does that. So looking forward to participate with all of you in a different way, as well as this way. Thank you.
Okay, that was good. That was quick and fast. So I'm going to take a brief pause, and we'll move into our 3-minute speech segment. And Julie, if you can time it, that would be great, because I'd like to come in close to 3 minutes as possible. Okay, great. Okay, welcome to Speech Talk Live. At this point, we call this the 3-minute speech segment, where Anybody who's participating gets to talk for 3 minutes on any topic they want to as a way of practicing, because I think in 3 minutes you could pretty much convey your idea just about on any topic. If you can't do it in 3 minutes, if you require more than 3 minutes, then you are essentially teaching or entertaining. But in 3 minutes, you should be able to do it. So I'll go first. And today I'm going to talk about raising the stakes. And what I mean by this is if you're watching this in public speaking, you have to raise the stakes. So let's say you are fearful and you just don't want to give a speech in front of people. You can't go from being scared, which a lot of people are, scared of giving a public speech, to all of a sudden getting in front of a large audience and giving a speech. That's a big hop you're taking, okay? That's like going from zero to almost like 100, which is not possible. So what I recommend is the following. You take incremental steps. So in the beginning, because what typically happens is that people don't do this, and then suddenly they get an opportunity to give a speech, and it's very nerve-wracking because they just don't know how to start. They don't know the methodology. They haven't even gone through the process, and it's just not doable. Okay, I know how hard this is. So what I recommend is you take incremental steps. So first thing could be just recording on an audio, or you can record it on a video. Now the cameras are so prevalent, you can do it anywhere, and just get a feel for it. Just see what you look like, what you sound like, and if you do that, you're actually making improvement. And then you can keep raising the stakes. One of the things is to record a video and post it on YouTube. That's a step up, and get feedback from people. Because once you put it on YouTube, you are raising the stakes, because now you're making it available for much wider audience. Now not saying that that's going to happen right away, but eventually you want to do that incrementally. And then let's say after you get comfortable recording several videos, the next raising the stakes would be to start a YouTube program like what we do here called Speech Talk Live. And it's not going to go well all the time. You're not going to be perfect all the time, but that's part of growing. That's part of developing your skills, and you will become comfortable. Part of public speaking is having that confidence, and if you have done it a few times, then you will start feeling comfortable. So like Julie and I have gone through, this is our 38th episodes, and I'm pretty sure at this point we don't really think hard about doing this show. It's almost becoming kind of automatic. We do have to prepare. That's required in anything. And the next phase after this is to go and give a lot of live speeches, or you could be doing it concurrently. So the point here is keep raising the stakes. Otherwise, when you do get an opportunity to speak in a high stakes situation, you will know that you have done it before, and it's not going to be a big thing. So that's my 3-minute speech for today. And at this point, I'll hand it off to Julie to see what kind of if she's going to raise the stakes with her 3-minute speech. You're muted.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, so I'm just taking a minute to say that was a great speech, and I think you're going into the next level of creativity. A lot of the things you're doing is shifting. I can feel that. So congratulations. So I'm going to talk about, here I go. So today I'm actually going to talk about something that inspired me to look at my speeches both proactively in terms of preparing for it, readying for it, doing it, and then reviewing it. So in the athletic terms, you have preparation, you say ready, get set, and go, and then I'm adding what happened. Of course, Jay figured out at this point I'm talking about his checklist. He shared with me a checklist on speeches was like 24, 25 items, and I looked at it and my mind went bang, 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 that's too much, I can't handle it. So taking a deep breath, not shooting out an email right away. I looked at it and I talked with Jay. So I did two things with it, and I like to share my experiences with that. One is I know when I'm in the middle of being a creative, I cannot handle 25 items in my brain. I can handle about two or three. Okay. So then I challenge him and say, what are the three most important things on your checklist? And he said, what is the purpose of your speech? The second one was, who is your target audience? And the third one was, what results do you get? And I think those are really great for preparation phase. Okay, so the next one I'm calling it get set or ready to go. And I'm not sure what his choice would be, but mine would be get into the victory pose, energize your body and mind. And secondly, create a mindset of how you want to experience the speech and also how you want the results to be. And the third one is to go. Now, he have a list of basically tutoring on how to speak. So I took three for myself. Slow down, talk from the belly, not necessarily slow down, but more like pacing. So for example, I could talk very fast, but if I take a break as I did, you will have no problem processing my ideas. So pacing. The second thing for me is talk from the belly. Talking from the belly grounds me, and my speech becomes more resonant and not so shrill, which is my natural tendency. So talk from the belly. So instead of saying lower the octave, I talk from the belly. And the third one for me is because I think I'm an introvert. I do a lot of processing inside my brain, and I'll look up or left. So my third thing for me is eye contact. And finally, the last thing is to do a post-mortem, which is what happened. So on Jay's checklist, I found it very helpful, and I've come up with lists of my hack list for preparation, getting ready, doing the speech, and what happened. And with that, I want to say thank you very much. And I want to thank Jay because I think I also like to use it as a framework to create my executive summary, which is something else I'm working on. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Julie. That was really good. Yeah, I think what you sent me is, I think I didn't think of it. What you did really helped me understand it even better, because sometimes when you think of these things, and unless somebody uses it, you don't really know how well it is really working. And what you did was that the reason I did that was simply because when people come and ask you, I have a speech to give, and what do you give them first, right? So you just make them, the reason that has 25 is that I just want them to kind of go through it quickly, not like they have to, and then they can select which one they need. Like you said, the first top three is the one they need to focus on. And then as they get past that, they can focus on the next three. So it's sort of like, take a look quick. It's like reading a book, you just skim the book quickly, and then you start with the, table of contents or whatever, or just look at the introduction. And that's what that is. And I think I need to explain that better because it's not that clear. But I think it can help people a lot when they have a speech to give, because a lot of times it's just overwhelming. There's just so many things to think about that I like the way you wrote down each of the, like a highlight, like here's this idea. I think one thing I would also point out is write down like the top 4 or 5 questions that you want that you want to convey, like just as a part of the preparations. A lot of times people start writing speech and working on an outline, and that may not be the right way to do. A lot of times you just like write down the questions and just answer them, just like do a Q&A type of thing. And that could be one of the tip. I don't know if that belongs in the checklist or not, but that could be part of the Q&A, that to get started, ask the top 5 questions you want to answer, that you want to answer to the to the audience. That's how I would, because I did that recently with my daughter, and I think it helped her. But then I asked her, "Do you want to give it?" She has a speech this tomorrow, and I asked her, "Why don't you go over it with me?" And she said, "No, I'm too scared because you're going to criticize it." So there you go. I didn't know I was that scary to my own daughter, but I guess I am. All right, so I'm going to take. Thanks a lot, Julie. That was good. So we'll keep working on it, and I'd like that. I'd like to make that available to people, freely, and I'd like to tweak it further and use that as a way to give it out to people, because sometimes that's all you really need, and that's what I'm trying to do: simplify it. Okay, I'm going to take a brief pause, and we'll move to our first segment. Okay, welcome back. My name is Jay Yoza. This is Speech Talk Live, episode number 38, and this is segment number 1. And in this segment, I'm going to talk about. I have recorded a video that I'll provide you the link, and it's a way to make sure your speech is resonating, and I call it the zone of success, for no better name. Maybe there might be a better name. A zone of speech success might be the more appropriate name. And what I do in this talk, I think it was like 6 minutes, it wasn't that long. I kind of explain like how we tend to think. And one of the fancy word that often is used when it comes to brain is that we are cognitive misers. Like, we don't like to use up our brain to do a lot of thinking, because the brain has a limited capacity to really think, right? Brain is not really a thinking machine. It's really a seeing and motion machine that helps us see things and move, right? That's what brain does. So heavy duty thinking is kind of difficult for the brain to do. So that means that our brain tends to pick things out and makes a binary decision. For example, one of the example I give is when you're dating, you get lumped into the friend zone or romance zone pretty quickly. Then the other one, I give an example of a job interview where my friend, he wants to be in this business zone and he gets lumped into the techie zone. So you got to know that what zone you want to be in. Otherwise, you really don't know. Otherwise, it's going to be a fail, and you don't want to waste time if you're not in the right zone. So the two zones that I came up with when it comes to public speaking, and this is not just public speaking, this could be speaking with anybody, is interesting and boring. And I try to simplify it because it's hard to tell whether you're a good speaker or a bad speaker. That might be one way of looking at it. But when you're speaking, somebody's judging you whether they're going to pay attention to you or not. Now, they could be polite and they'll let you talk, and you have no idea. So you have to ask yourself, and this is something that could be part of the checklist, is what zone do you want to be in? And I think there are only two zones, because you don't know how the audience is going to receive your speech because you haven't said anything. So you have to go with the expectation. You've got to go with this intention that I want to remain in this interesting zone. But how do you keep it there? But you have to keep asking that, right? That's the question you have to keep asking. Am I in the interesting zone? So one of the ways, obviously, is to get a reaction, to see your audience, look at their eyes. Are they looking at you interested? Are they nodding? Are they, take a sweep, take a scan of the audience, get an idea. If it's a large group, then you kind of are far. If you're farther away from it, it's kind of difficult. But still, pick out a few people from the audience that will give you some indication. You can't look at everybody. But in a small group, I think you have a lot of latitude to work with the audience, and you have to. I think it will make your speech much more lively and interesting for them. And one of the things to do is, ask questions and say something at some point in your speech, put the different markers and saying, okay, at this point, I'm going to take a quick break and get a feel for what the audience is interested in. Don't spend too much time with the QA, but take one or two quick questions to get a feel for the audience, kind of change the pace a little bit, and kind of break the monotony, because sometimes no matter how good a speaker you are going to be boring. It's just, there's no way a speaker, no matter how good you are, you could be interesting from beginning till the end, okay? I've read some of the best novels out there, even the best novels out there, like Anna Karenina. There are a lot of boring parts in there, okay? So even a speech can be boring at different intervals. So Julie, what do you think about that? Like when you are giving a speech, and this is something that I really need to work on also, like, am I interesting? But when you're recording in a video, it's kind of a camera, it's hard to do that. But when you are giving a speech, like, you do have the ability to know whether you're interesting or not. And that's why, like, I'm just going to now stop here and ask your feedback to see what I'm saying is anything interesting here or not. And then I can come back and say more. So take it over.
Okay, thanks, Jay. First of all, I thought this was a very innovative speech, and I thought it was it's outside the envelope of your regular thinking. So I think there's a lot of potential here. Um, I'm going to give you a little bit of speech feedback before I get into the idea. Well, first of all, I'm going to summarize what I got out of it. Then I'll give you some feedback based on what I got out of it, and then open it up into why I think the idea is so great. So first of all, I got the first thing is that human minds, when we're interacting, we tend to shift into binary. I call it the binary mind, good or bad, yes or no. And so you want to shift people into the yes zone. So that's what I got. And then you get 3 examples where this is a fundamental human experience in the personal, in the professional, and in the personal, in the job interviews, and then in the speech making, right? And then the 2 zones, then what you're saying is use it as a guideline to test. It's a litmus test. Are you pregnant? Are you not? Are you interesting? Are you boring? Are people getting your ideas? Are you informative or are you confusing, right? I thought that was really great. In fact, I think I need to take that and think that how to use it in my mind because I tend to be chaotic. So I think this is a really organizing framework. And I like it that it's crossing domains, right? Crossing realms. So it goes from personal realm to business realm to communication realm. What I did not like the first, in terms of, so I like the idea. So in terms of my feedback for your speech, where not so much I don't like it, but let's use your binary method. What I didn't like was I thought the title was confusing because your message was really more like getting into a zone of success, have that zone ready, define that zone, and then move into that zone. And for what you're saying is for the personal relationships, the romantic relationship is you want to get out of the friend zone. So I use my son's childhood experiences. You don't want to be like, you want to be like. You know, that's a zone. And in the business case, I think your idea of business nirvana versus nirvana, I thought that was very catchy and memorable. So I like that. I think that those are practically personal branding names. Finally, in terms of speech, I think there's more to it than interesting or boring. I think really more like, do you get me or you don't? You know, is there a connection? Something more than interesting. I don't know what that is. So that's my feedback in terms of your speech. I thought it was very interesting and very good. It got into some fundamental issues for anybody, so it has universal appeal. What I did not like is the title, because you're saying get into a zone for the speech. I would say something like getting into the zone of success, succeeding by finding your zone, or applying the method or the principle of the zone of success in your life. So that's my feedback.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. So maybe sometimes these titles are kind of put in at the end, and then you just and that's part of the feedback I'm looking for, right?
Right. Yeah. Nobody. I mean, my job is to give you constructive criticism. So.
Right. So maybe the title should not be zone of success. It's too vague. What is the zone of speaking success?
No, it's not about speaking. That's my whole point. You had 7 minutes. 2 minutes were on the personal experience. 2 minutes were on your professional experience, and then you had 2 minutes on speaking. So you either make it like 6 minutes, 5 minutes on speaking, and then squeeze those two examples to be smaller, or you make a general thing like this, how zone of success applies to different aspects of your life. That's my whole point. My point is you either have to change the title to match the scope.
Right. So what title do you recommend?
I really like getting into the zone of success, or applying the zone of success principle in all your affairs, or something like that. Applying the zone of success, because I think your zone of success is almost like a lean methodology.
So maybe I shouldn't even use the word zone, but I can't change that.
I think zone is great.
Yeah.
I think zone is great. I really like the word zone. I think that, in fact, getting into the zone is, it's a popular phrase, right? Say, hey man, I gotta get into the groove, or I gotta get into my zone. So I think you're tapping into a universal experience when you use the word zone.
Okay, got it. Yeah, no.
So I think what you're saying is because the mind is human. This is what I got. I shouldn't say this is what you said. This is what I got. Because the human mind is always binary, it's easy for you to find your zone using the binary method. Once you get into the zone, then you want to keep your clients your audience in the zone, or whoever your target is, your date, the people who are interviewing you, your boss, the people you're making a pitch to.
The part that I want you to give me some feedback on is, that's the what, to remain in the zone of success. The question is, when you're giving a speech, how do you know what zone you're in? Because it's not what you think you're in. You might say, okay, I want to be in the interesting zone, okay? But it's like, how do you gauge the audience's, what zone are they putting you in? That's the bigger question here. See, that's the bigger question.
No, that's a deeper question.
Yeah, because that's the question that you have to answer. And that's something you got to kind of do it dynamically, right? That, hey, I want to be in the interesting zone. But if the audience has already put you in the boring zone, then how do you get out of it? Or is it too late at that point?
Well, I think that's part of your methodology. That is your methodology.
Right. So the point that I was trying to make in that, also in that short speech, was that, are there anything you can do as a speaker? Let's say I have done all the preparation to say, I want to be in the interesting zone. Now I'm giving the speech. I start my speech, say something. I get like 5 minutes into the speech. I need to get some kind of an indication whether I am still in that zone that I wanted to be in with the audience. And how do I determine that? And if I feel like I need to validate that, those are, I think, more technique oriented. Those are techniques.
Yes.
But like one of the things I said was ask questions, look around, scan the audience. Because if you're not sure what zone you're in, because you want to start interesting and end interesting with the audience. And the only way you can do that is by really reading the audience closely. Because a lot of times what happens is, with speakers, they're just happy to just start their speech and finish it. They really are not noticing the audience at all, whether the audience are in the same zone that they are in. And if you're not doing that, then you're just going through the motion of giving a speech. It's not having any kind of effect. And that's a bigger topic, but I'm just saying that that's something that, you know what I'm saying, that a lot of times you've been to speeches where somebody's just speaking and you never get the intent, you never get the intention that the person really cares about whether you're getting it or not. They're going to start and finish it, and that's it. And then say, are there any questions at the end? And I'm like, no, because I don't think I don't understand what you said. I completely,
zoned out.
Zoned out, right? I was just making sure I was using I wasn't zoned in, I was zoned out, right? So I have no questions. And that's the thing, like a lot of the speeches just end with a whimper, and then it's over. At that point, it's over. Anyway, this is a much deeper topic that we could come back on maybe one of the things we could talk about is what are some of the techniques that we could use to make sure we remain in the zone. Okay, any closing thoughts? You're
Just
muted. You're muted. Okay.
yes, just that I think it's a great topic. I'm glad you brought it up, so thank you.
Yeah, it's something we may want to put it. I don't know if it's in the check. I think it's in the checklist, but it's something we to think about. That what zone do you want to be in, so you remain there. Okay, thanks a lot, Julie. And at this point, we'll end this segment and take a brief pause. Okay, welcome back. My name is Jay Oza. This is Speech Talk Live, episode number 38. And we're moving to segment number 2. And in this segment, Julie Wu Finkelstein is going to facilitate it. And she has recorded a video as a way to discuss this topic. And this is part of the book that she's writing. So she's basically describing the energy hack. And part of the energy hack is to do these 12 exercises. So she has recorded this video where she gives the reason for these 12 exercises and then goes and describes these 12 exercises. So at this point, I'm going to just hand it over to Julie, and she can kind of walk us, describe the video and what her purpose is. And then if she wants any specific feedback, we can have a discussion on that. All right, Julie, take it over.
Thank you, Jay. Yes, I made the video in 3 hacks using the hacking technique, and what I share with you here is the 3rd hack. My purpose and I also went back and used the checklist, which was very useful. So my purpose is basically at this point have a very unspecified target. Just like whoever's interested in body-mind techniques and looking for a way to energize and empower their lives. My goal in this speech per se was twofold. One is to practice and to get feedback from you, Jay, and anybody else who would like to. Thank you. And secondly, as a way to my larger goal, to support my larger goal, which is to share these moves, poses as a way of for people to adopt and integrate into their lives. And finally, it's a whole, it's integrated with my purpose of my work right now, which is to help people to become more powerful and live their lives with power and ease. So I'll just briefly say the 10 moves, which is one is centering, which is essentially an online, it's a meditation. And the whole 12 poses are meditations in motion. The second one is the forward bend. It allows the head to be refreshed. The third one is the sitting straddle. It opens up the core, our core state of being, both physiologically and energetically. And then after that is the lunge. The lunge helps us, once the core is open, to stabilize and strengthen from the core area so that we can face our life with courage and curiosity. So I call that the hero's pose. And then the triangle. The triangle is expansion, opening up the sides. As we open up from the inside, we need to open up the outside too. And then going back into the downward dog, which is another way of opening and stabilizing and balances out our body, because our limbs have to be equalized. The hands are down, the legs, feet are down. Our limbs have to equalize to stay stable. After the downward dog is the spinal twist, which goes into really a huge reorganization. Every cell is getting squeezed, every cell is getting fresh blood. And then taking out of the traditional vertical and horizontal alignment and going into the circulation of things. After that is the pigeon, which is opening up the hips. A lot of the body-mind experts, such as Louise Hay, says our power comes from the hips when we walk this earth, when we live this human life. After the hips, it's Uddiyana. So now that the whole body is open, our body is a river of flowing. We actually want to collect that energy. So the the bandhas are logs, so it creates a human energetic dam. So I call it creating the bank and putting money in the bank of energy. After that is the butterfly, completing the circuit. And then the shoulder stand, again, one more time for reversing and reorganizing, and then going into the corpse pose, which is the ultimate receptor, the yin yang. In the yin yoga, this is the most yin. And I end my book with that I call in traditional meditation circles, the centering the meditation is the king of asanas. So the receptivity, I call that the mother of the king of the asanas, because it's out of this receptivity that all energy can manifest through the body. So I'm going to look for feedback from you in terms of content, what I could be more clear, as well as the speech.
Okay, Julie, thanks a lot. Yeah, that was great. Okay, so let me just tell you the things that I noticed, and I think some of the things that you could improve. And it's not meant to improve; it's just something to think about. Uh, First of all, let me just tell you, I just like the way you're improving your speaking skills. You look much more comfortable. You should feel good about that because in I mean, you made I don't know. You should look back at some of the earlier videos that you made. You look much more confident in what you're saying now. And I think that's really important. And I should just talk more about what that means. You have to have the presence like you have something important to say, because if you don't act that, and this might be something Amy Cuddy might be saying, fake it till you become it, maybe. You do have to do that, right? Because we're all starting out, we're all amateurs, and at some point, and even if you think you're good, you still should be practicing it because your audience is different, and you don't want to come across too cocky either. And you have the right type of tone now in communicating your message now with these exercises, and I think that's a big improvement because if I don't see confidence in a speaker, then I don't pay attention to their content. So that's one of the things that you always have to keep in mind. Do I look confident? Because confidence speaks louder than what you're actually saying. And I thought that you did that well, and you weren't also your body language indicated that. Okay, your body language indicated that. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is I like the way you organized the speech by coming right out and saying, what was the purpose of the speech, which sometimes is important. Here's what I want to talk about. Boom, right away, get it out there. People try to do too many things. Sometimes it's just simple to just tell people, like you always use that approach. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just told them, right? If that's what you're comfortable with, then stick to that. Don't try anything different, because if that's what makes your speech work, then stick with that formula, because that works. And I think you did that. I think that's the one you feel comfortable with, and you did that quite effectively. And also, I like the way you sum up everything at the end. I think that also is something you've become a lot better at now. There's three things I just pointed out. I don't know whether that was part of using the checklist or not. The opening, the middle, and the ending. Okay, so those were the. I think that really helps people follow what you're saying. Okay, some of the things that you may want to think about perhaps improving next time. One thing is pretty obvious to me is that you're using notes, and I'm not sure whether you needed that or not. When you use the notes, it becomes distracting from an audience point of view. Like, why can't she just tell me what these 12 poses are? Especially if you are an authority on these 12 poses. That may require some. I don't know if this is something that you would have to memorize, and you didn't want to do that, or you just didn't want to go out of order or something. So, but even then, I think if you had just kind of posted it behind the camera, I wouldn't have seen it, but I wouldn't have seen the cards that you had in your hand. I would try to avoid that in the future. Anytime you have to use, unless you're quoting something, then pick it up and read the quote and then put it down. But as far as all the poses were, I don't think you needed the card. Well, that's just something I just noticed uh, right away. The other thing I'll point out is, and this is more of a technique thing. This is not that what you did wasn't. It's again a choice thing. But when you say the three things regarding the energy, and it comes very early in the speech, and there are three things there, I would say that maybe just itemize that, number it. Like number one, it relieves stress. Number two, it helps you mastering in success or something. And number three, it's like determining the meaning. Just letting people know that it's one, it's two, it's three. I think it helps. This is not that. This is just for the audience. This is so the audience can follow along. Oh, I see. She gave me three things, and I see exactly what those three things are. So they know that you're moving from one to the two to the three. It helps them follow your speech much better. And the other thing is, and this is I think something I've communicated to you in the past. These stretches you're describing, if you're not going to show them, because these are stretches that really work if you're showing them, right? So you got to tell them that why are you telling these stretches without showing them? So what is your main purpose of telling what these stretches are? Because stretches, they work if you're showing what those stretches are. So you have to make it clear that in this particular video, I'm not going to demonstrate these poses. I'm just going to tell you what these poses do. On future video, I will actually be able to demonstrate, or it's in the book, I demonstrate all these poses. It's outside the scope of this video. You got to make that clear, because otherwise I was looking for you to demonstrate those poses, and I'm sure that was not part of but you got to make it clear, because whenever you talk about something, it's like a show and tell, but you're telling but not showing, then you got to make it clear that in this particular video, I'm just going to focus on the benefits of the pose, not actually showing you what these poses are. I could either show that in the future video, etc. Anyway, that's just something that I thought would have helped if you had done that, because actually the poses, you're not demonstrating the poses, and you are talking about them. And that's about it. Yeah, I'll turn it back to you, and maybe you can just explain why you made those choices, or if there's something there that I needed to understand better. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I muted myself in the middle of your talk. Yeah, I'm going to respond to that and to your feedback, and I'll give you what I put down as my own feedback, which you encourage us to do. I think I have time. So I did post the notes behind the camera, but what I did not do was I didn't post all the information I want to share on the camera, on the sheet behind. So I'll do that in the future. So I like the idea of posting the notes behind the camera. I was just lazy. I had my notes, and there was a question of visibility, like how much can I see and all that. In terms of, I really like the idea of enumerating the three aspects that energy can help. I like, as you know, I like enumerating a lot. I took your checklist and I numbered them, and that's the first thing I did. So I like it that I'm getting advice for things I naturally do and do not do. And in terms of the last comment, explicitly say why. Okay, so there's two aspects to that. I did not demonstrate the moves because I could not do it in less than 10 minutes. And I wanted this to be an informative speech. And so that's why I kept it, and within I think this one's about 9 minutes. I want to keep it under 10 minutes. And I like the idea of saying that explicitly, and that there will be forthcoming videos to do that. So thank you. In terms of my own feedback, I just wrote down, I like my hand gestures. I agree with you. I'm more comfortable. I think the comfort factor is just I just have to keep doing these. For me, there's no way to fake it until I make it, and which means practice, practice, practice. But I think I have better. I think I would like to have better eye contact. So removing the notes and having better memorization of what I want to say, not just the moves, but also what I want to say about each move. Again, it's a practice thing. I think I'm better, but I like to further improve my clarity. Um, According to Michael Port, who you know, he says it's okay to speak fast, but you need to make pauses because actually the brain can process at twice the speed of what we speak. But what the brain needs to do is to organize the message. So I'm going to work with slowing down, speeding up, pausing, breaking, all that to have better vocal clarity. I like my hand gestures. So two more things to improve. I would like my voice to be deeper so that there's some sound practices I can do from the Rinzai yoga tradition, Rinzai Zen tradition, which deepens the power of the belly. And then finally, I want to specifically get feedback from you. We have about 4 minutes. So when I think, I will look up because that's my recall mechanism. And I really would like to start not doing that. So like instead of looking up, I would like to maintain eye contact. Like I'm able to do right now, even though I'm thinking, I'm looking at you in the video. So any suggestions for eye contact enhancement will be great. And you have about 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as the eye contact, I really wouldn't worry with the when the camera's there. I just like I said, I just look at the camera because with camera it's a little tricky, and for some people it's really hard, which I can sympathize with because I just look right into the camera and it's okay to look away once in a while because you don't want to keep staring at that one thing, but then just bring your point back and just start again in the camera. I think when you're transitioning, it might be a good time to look away from the camera and then get back right into the camera. You may want to try one of the things that in the checklist that I indicated was that you have to practice the transitions. Transitions are very important, not just for yourself, but for the audience, because the audience gets the beginning, they get the ending, and they get the transitions. And one time, I think it might have been Seth Godin who said that this was a book written by a comic, and he said that in the comic, most of the information is communicated between one picture to the next. What's happening in between? That transition is where a lot of things happen that they don't show you, and then you'll suddenly see something else after that, then something else after that. And speech is sort of like that when you go from one to the other, that transition really is for your audience to understand. It's for them to either take a break or they know that now you're moving on to something else. And it's that setup, then the actual discussion, and then the conclusion, and then again a transition. And those are kind of things that take a while that we all have to work on. The one other thing I will point out is when you're speaking, that last word, say it instead of letting it roll. I think I've told you that before.
Yes.
Because what that does is, I don't know if other people, if you have gotten this feedback from anybody else, because when you roll the word at the end, it makes you look less confident, that you're not sure whether you really believe in what you're saying. Like if I say, Julie, I don't know if you believe in what you're saying. When I roll it at the end, I don't even know if I'm using the right terminology for that. It's just it's one of those habits, I think, that you need to figure out how to break out of it, so that every word, because if everything is rolling, after a while you don't know whether you really believe in what you're saying. This is just my perspective. It may not be true, but try to just say everything and and not roll the words at the end. And typically, notice it at the end that happens. So take a look at some of your videos and see if you agree with me on that.
I agree with you on that. So
Yeah,
thank you.
but how do you break that? That's the question.
Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate the feedback you gave me on my speech, and I took notes, so I will continue practicing.
Yeah.
So
So let me
thank you.
just so let me just conclude. I think you're doing the right thing. I think some of the feedback that I'm giving you is just to take you to the next level. So I don't want you to start focusing on saying, "Oh my God, he just gave me so much." These are just some things that I would say again. If I had to give the 60-30-10, I would just focus on that enumeration part. That can really help a lot when you have three things. That's
Okay.
that's something you can practice. The other thing is this rolling thing. I think you need to practice that because that can get distracting. And don't use your notes. And I think those are the three highlights. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right,
Thanks.
Julie. Thanks a lot. Great job.
Thank you.
I'm
I'll
gonna.
turn it back to you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'm gonna take a brief pause. Just before I do that, for those who are watching. So this is kind of what we do on this show. Julie has recorded a 10-minute speech, and then we this is part of the practicing. You come on the show, discuss your speech, what you're trying to achieve, and then ask for honest feedback. And feedback's a tricky part. So in the beginning, it might be difficult, but that's how you improve. And you have to trust the people. That's the main thing. Julie trusts me that I'm doing it to help her. And at the end, she's the one who has to make the decision. These are just uh, that's how it works. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to take a brief pause, and then we'll start our third segment. Okay, welcome to Speech Talk Live, episode 38. This is segment number 3. And in this segment, I've decided to use one of the recent TED Talk that was given by Dalia Mogahed, who is a scholar, and she is a Muslim. And she is giving a talk about how people perceive Muslims in United States, and she's her talk is to show people that they're just like us. They're no different. They just have a different religion. And she's talking about her experience living in America as a Muslim, what it's like, and what it has been like recently with a lot of anti-Islamic sentiments that's been expressed by people due to events that are basically they're also a victim of what's happening with their religion. And the reason I included this talk was that it's a kind of talk that makes you think, because she's raising a subject that's in people's mind. But for some reason, people do not want to have an honest discussion. So I think she's very courageous to get on the TED stage and bring this topic out in the open. And let's just have like an honest dialogue, because this is a topic where you need to get in front of people, as Obama said, get in front of their face and discuss it. Hey, what do you think of Muslims? Are we scary? Do you think we're like terrorists? What do you think? Let's have a dog. Let's have a dialogue. Let's have a talk, and see that we're no different than you are. And that's how you get to know people better. That by talking to them, by making them understand who they are, and also to listen to the other side, because you can't just be talking to them. You also have to be listening to them and see what the root of their fears are and what's bothering them, and then come to some sort of an agreement that we can coexist together. I mean, that's the beauty of America, right? I think that's one of the things that, if you take away everything, it's that people in America somehow find ways to get along. Sometimes there are a lot of demagogues out there. There are a lot of people who want to cause problems. They want to divide people. But overall, the DNA of Americans, wherever you come from, is to learn how to get along with other people, irrespective of who they are, their race, their religion, their sexual orientation. The arc is towards getting along. And I think she was kind of demonstrating that. that one of the areas that she has concern is that a lot of people do not quite understand who Muslims are, especially Muslim Americans. And I thought she did a very good job, but she also raised a lot of questions too in people's minds. And I think that was the beauty of her speech, is that it allowed you to also ask questions that you couldn't ask her, since we just reviewed the speech. So this was a kind of speech that worked for me in bringing an issue that a lot of people don't talk about. They talk about among themselves, but that's not where the talking should be. You should be talking to the Muslim community. And I think with the speech, it gives, that's why I wanted to discuss it. It gives us an opportunity to have an honest discussion. And then hopefully we can understand each other better. Now, unfortunately, in this particular talk, I'm not a Muslim. Julie, you're not a Muslim as far as I know. So we're at a disadvantage that we don't have a Muslim viewpoint here. But the point here is not to, it's just like I said, it's to have a dialogue. We're not going to resolve anything in one talk, but the purpose is that you have to look at the entire issue. It's very complicated. What she did was in a TED talk was about 18, 16 minutes. And I'm sure this topic requires much more in-depth discussion over time, because this is not a simple issue. This is a very complex issue. But at least she got that TED stage to bring this out in the open so that people are free, both Muslims and non-Muslims, to get together and really have a discussion. Just like feedback. Hey, you got to be able to receive the feedback. And the Muslim community should be, I think what she's trying to say is that we're ready to receive feedback, but I'm reaching out to you and I'm going to tell you how I feel. But I'm also open to listening to what you have to say. Julie, what did you think of her speech?
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, it was a very amazing speech. I mean, she used from a content point of view, I think it really resonates. The escalating fear and aggression that's happening in our electoral process. And I'd like to speak to that. And the other thing I'd like to speak to is I think she did put a lot of information in a little time, and they were very emotional questions as well as vital political regional questions in the world. I can't speak to everything she said, but I thought that considering that she was talking about such an emotional topic, she was very stable. She was very non-controversial, and some of the things she says were very, very challenging. So one of the things she said is that the Muslims, there's like over a billion, 1.6 billion. That's like a quarter of the world's population, slightly more maybe. And that they're not tumor, they're not cancer. They are a vital organ. And then she talked about even as a benign tumor, they are surveyed. And she used the word surveillance. So very powerful use of the words. The other good, excellent point is she used the word radicalized. I would say alienate radicalization doesn't happen in mosques, doesn't happen in Islam, religious institutions. It happens in the basement, and she related that to rage. That when people have so much rage, when they're being repressed or denied, then that's an opportunity for recruiting that alienated radical terrorist movement. She used the word the canary in a coal mine. And then so I think those were really powerful metaphors. And then she finally, I want to focus up one more minute on this topic of that fear, that when people are consumed with fear, that there are three modalities that people will turn to. And one is authoritarianism. They're willing to give up a personal power or authority to some religion, some institution. I think that's what's happening, that people want to look for a powerful guy to represent us, and that I think that's a part of the Trump phenomena. And part of that, the second, so okay, one, two, three, relation, relation, relinquishing power to the authorities, conforming, and then having prejudice. So in this case, I think in this electoral process, we're ready to relinquish our personal power to someone like Trump, right? I mean, he represents our anger, our frustration, our not giving a shit and say what we mean from the gut kind of thing, but also a conformity, because people are not going to delve into the subtle points of who I am, who I'm not, what do I represent. And so it's conformity is letting go of something to be in alignment with some bigger force. So I think that conformity is part of letting go of our personal authority. And then entwined in that is the prejudice. That was number three, is that then we project our frustrations onto either a person or a group of people and objectifying them. So this whole idea of building the wall, it's another language for creating an object so we can hate them. And I think that's a very scary thing to do. But the censor is not to make fun of them or deny them and call those people who follow Trump names, but to understand the rage, because she talks about the process of not shaming that fear, but somehow turn that into a kind of transformative process as well. So I want to leave the idea with that for you to.
Yeah. So let me now I said some of the things that really I found the speech to be very powerful, but I also point out certain things, since like I said, this is part of a reason for being there was to have an honest dialogue. And one of the things that she kind of touched upon, I like the humor she used in the beginning, that, I'm the airport security line delay. The part that she does not address, and again, like I said, this is a very complex topic. It's the role of women in Islam is a real serious issue that she does not address in her talk at all. And one of the things that she does not go into is that she said that at the age of 17 or something, she found religion. And that's fine, you can find religion. But one thing that I have difficulty understanding about Islam is that I'm religious, I follow my religion, but I don't show my religion by the way I dress. I just don't understand that part, right? That's like, I can see why nuns dress the way they do because they're really committed to their religion. But if you're not a religious person, as far as like being an imam or somebody, and you are wearing certain clothing that kind of defines your religion, I think if you're going to do that, then people's perceptions are also people are going to judge you based on that. That why are so openly demonstrating your religion? I don't have any problem with your religion when you're at home and practicing it, or you're practicing it in a mosque. But when you're outside the home, do I really need to know what your religion is? Like, why is that so important to you? And if that's so important to you, then shouldn't I also have the right to also be able to judge you based on that? So that's one point she did not address. And also, why is it that the women have to suddenly change their whole clothing and way they live? I think that's an important issue that the people in Islam needs to, like, you can like your religion, I can like my religion, but I'm not overtly ever demonstrating my religion to people. The other thing that I think there were some issues around logic. Let's not kid ourselves. Islam has a real problem, and the problem is that when she says that like ISIS doesn't has much to do with Islam as KKK has much to do with Christianity, that logic wasn't really correct. ISIS controls a vast land, almost the size of Indiana. As far as I know, KKK doesn't control any land in America or anywhere else. So that logic doesn't really make any sense to me. That I think if I were giving this speech, I would come out and just say, listen, we have a problem. Islam has a problem. Our religion has been taken over by these people. Now it's our duty to take it back from them. And I didn't see her taking that approach. It was almost like things are just happening. And what is my role as an Islamic woman to change that perception? She wants us to change the perception of Islam, but the question is, what are they doing to change, to take back the religion the way they want us to perceive it? And I think that's a bigger issue that was not addressed in her talk, and that's what a lot of people really have an issue with. That if you look around the world, there are some real serious issues. When they do polls, a lot of the belief in Islam is that they believe in many of this. It doesn't take a large percentage of the population to cause havoc, and the percentage is quite large. So I completely sympathize with her, what she's trying to do, but there is a real problem that she does not address in here in this. And it's not like comparing ISIS to KKK. That's not a good comparison. The main thing that the speech should have done, in my opinion, is to lay out the problem and see that we need help. We need to work together in a way to solve this. And the people who have to really lead this are people like myself. I think the speech would have been more powerful. It was powerful as it was, but there are certain issues that have to be addressed by the Muslim community. I know they're trying, but that's the reality that they need to really address. Like if this was happening in my religion, I'm a Hindu, I would be telling, look, we got a problem. We got a bunch of nutsos here who are really messing up our religion. And it's my duty to correct the perception. And it's my duty to tell them, it's not for someone like you to come and say, hey, Jay, I like you, you're okay. But I have to convince you, listen, we got a bunch of people out there that are just not good people. And unless we fix them, then I can agree why you would not like me. You would have suspicion about me. And that's how people think. People need one bad example to bias their views. And that's how human brain works. We just talked about it. And that's something I think they need to address, that it doesn't take many to cause a misperception. So anyway, I'll turn it over to you to see if you had anything that you think she could have done better in the speech.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I do have a prejudice against the Hindus' religion. So I don't feel like it's your responsibility to correct that. I feel it's my responsibility to correct that. So I agree with her that I have a certain responsibility in changing my prejudices. So I'll share my, it's not a conscious, I will never think that, I will never say that, but I know that it's a habituated somewhere in my consciousness that the Hindu way of treating women historically has been very bad. And it hasn't changed deeply enough for my satisfaction in Hindu societies, but to say that, for me to say then it's your responsibility because you're Hindu to change my perception, I think that's putting the responsibility in the wrong place. I think it's my responsibility to see what's going on, to see the diversity of the Hindu communities. I have a woman who lives next door to me, and she's a Hindu, and she's very powerful. She made her own marriage choices, and she is successing any global standard, and she has power. She has parity with her husband, maybe a little bit more than parity. I think there is valid parallel in comparing ISIS to KKK. My guess is, first of all, to answer your land question, my guess is there is a parallel. I bet the KKK owns a lot of land. I bet there is some very deep roots in the power structure with KKK. Okay, we just don't know them. The second point is her point is not who's controlling the land. Her point is this: out of 1 billion Muslims, the ISIS faction is a fringe. They are not the mainstream. Just as in Christianity, there's probably another 1 billion Christians in the world, maybe more, right? When you count the Catholics and all that. The KKK is a fringe. So the group should not be defined by the fringe. The perception of the group should not be defined by the fringe. As far as your point about she's a woman and there's these issues, that's a separate speech. And then you say you have the right to judge somebody based on their clothing appearance. I just don't agree with that. I mean, personally, I think people should have the right to dress as they like and not trigger global prejudices. In other words, if I see a Mexican man walking around in whatever Mexicans wear, I shouldn't call them a spick. Oh, that's Italian, but you know what I mean. National costumes that should not trigger prejudicial identities. I just think that's our own individuals' responsibility as global citizens.
Yeah, I'm not. What I'm trying to say is that I'm not saying that. I'm saying that other people may not be as forward-looking as I am, but these are the realities. All I'm saying is that that there are certain things that you can try. If for example, if I'm and believe it or not, even Jesse Jackson once said it, that when he was walking down the street, he feels uncomfortable if he sees a lot of black youths walking behind him. And why? Because people after a while hear about these cases about black youths beating up people or mugging them. And here's a civil rights leader who once said that. And all I'm saying is that human beings, our brain does not try to reason things out like, okay, listen, here is this is not how our brain reasons out when we see people, right? Unless you get to know them. Like, I know you, so now I don't have any kind of prejudices with you because I have known you for quite some time. But a lot of times you don't. You have to make decisions rather quickly. And if you see somebody wearing a hijab and you keep hearing these things about a lot of these women end up joining ISIS or whatever. Now, again, like you said, it's a very fringe element that could be doing it. But if you keep getting this in the media all the time, then after a while, that becomes like, okay, if I have to make a choice, I better be careful with this particular woman because I don't know where she's coming from. With her, and I think that lady at the end asked her a very legitimate question that, are you an exception or are you the rule? That was the question. And I think she answered it saying that I'm just as normal like anybody else. And that's true with her because we know her, right? We don't know anybody else. And in media, if you're around other people that you don't know, then it does prejudice you. Human beings we are prejudicial. Like it or not, we don't want to be, but that's what we are. I mean, I'm not sure how you avoid that. And another thing I'll point out is, as far as this ISIS versus KKK, KKK as in America doesn't govern anything as far as I can tell. I mean, just recently we had a spat about Donald Trump not answering that question probably, and look how much outcry he got for that. He still has to keep on disavowing. With ISIS is a totally different story. They have a huge land. They have a governing body that's controlling it, and their whole purpose is this is their policy is to basically root out, to create a caliphate, right? That's what they believe in. So in America, a KKK is not going to be able to take over a vast land and have their own governing body. They just won't be allowed. Look what happened in Oregon. Those people were immediately taken into custody. They had to surrender. So anyway, I think that comparison, in my opinion, doesn't hold water, comparing ISIS to KKK, because ISIS is in a different league altogether. I mean, they've even surpassed what Al Qaeda did, in a sense that they've killed so many people over the years. It's just, as far as I know, KKK occasionally will do something here, maybe kill one person here, but America is constantly watching them very closely. They can't get away with it in this country. Anyway, we can talk forever. So any closing thoughts? Because this is a topic, and I think, let me just tell you, I think what she did is that this opens up a dialogue, and that dialogue needs to take place, and that's what a good speech does. So what she did was very effective. It's gotten you and me to talk about this. So Dalia Mogahed did an excellent job in getting people to talk about this, and that's what we need. Otherwise, we're not going to understand each other better. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to underscore, agree with you and saying that, but there's more to it than that, and I have 2 points to that. One is the KKKs were extremely powerful in the 50s and the 60s. They did own land, and my guess is they still own them. It's just not as public. So, let me just wrap up with this thought. The second thing is I live my life as a minority woman with a stereotype, okay? So every minute of my life, every breath I take, I am expected to be a certain way, okay? People don't see me, they see a stereotype of me. I'm sure the same is true with you. So having lived in those stereotypes, I can only say that everybody has a responsibility to continually to clarify who their image of other people are.
Yeah, I want to address one thing before we end this, because I think it's something you pointed out about in Hindus, and I agree with you. We do have a problem in our religion, and I'm not sure if it's specific to religion. It's how the religion has been perverted, I guess, if that's the word. What happened was that in Hinduism, we do have a caste system, and that is very hard to root out. The country does so many things, but after a while, people have to make those decisions. There are laws and stuff that are in existence that makes discrimination not possible, but you can't change people's brains and how they think of others. If they're brought up thinking like, hey, you are this, and those people are this, those people are this. It's like the overall, like, look at America. We had slavery. Still people think that if you're white, you're superior to blacks. There are people who still think like that. People who are, and what you just said. But here's the question that I'll point out. I don't go out of my way look for people that are prejudicial, because I can't do anything about that, right? What I do is I say, well, let me look into my own religion, my own people, and how prejudicial are we within our own set, not in America. In America, you can say, yeah, I'm being discriminated, that's fine. But then if you start looking at it, you'll find that also exists in pretty much in every single culture. Like if I were to go to India, I would be lumped in a different category, right? So like I can see that when I talk with my people, they all have different ways of being internally, they have prejudices. It's hard to root out. And part of it is that you just, and this is the part that I liked about our speeches, the only way to get rid of prejudices is really get to know people one-on-one. And that's becoming more and more difficult as people just don't want to know each other. Go out of your way to get to know people. And then you'll find that, hey, they are like us. They're a little different, but they are like us, and we can get along. And I think that's like, just look at it. Like, me as a Hindu man, so now that changes your perception. That's because you know me, and that's what we have to do. And I think if there's a call to action for her speech, I do agree with her that we do have to make an effort to try to get to know other people, not just hi, hello, but just like what she said, that people came to the mosque, They should be more inviting to people. We should be more inviting to people. Try to get them on this show. We're trying, but it's not working. So if you're watching this, whatever your religion is, come on the show. We want to get to know you better. So, I mean, that's part of the advantage of having this type of technology, that we get an opportunity to talk to people from Brazil, from India, from, well, China, not really, but all over the world. So I thought this was a very good speech because it got us to really think. And when somebody makes you think, that means the speech was successful. Okay, so I think we're going to close out this show. And let me close out by saying, as you can see, this is part of speaking, right? Discussion. And when you give us good speech, it should bring out this type of discussion. That's a hallmark of an effective speech. And what Dalia Mogahed did was effective. She got us to talk about a topic that I hadn't really talked much about. We might have talked about internally in the family or something, but not in a public setting. And this is what we need to do. We need to bring it out in the open, whether it's issues relating to race, sexual orientation, or whatever. This is the only way to really get to know people, by openly discussing it and understanding it. Okay, so again, speaking is tough, and you are how you speak, and you got to keep doing it. There is no substitute for getting better at this, and slowly you will get better. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.